Michael McMahon, 20, from Mannering Park, is suffering from internal and chest injuries, as well as 2 broken wrists and a fractured thigh. Police said he was injured when the motorcycle he was driving ran head-on into a car on the Windsor Road at Darkies Creek. They said the occupants of the car were not hurt in the accident. It's been a tragic weekend in New South Wales. 7 people have died, all in country areas, bringing the state toll for the year to 480. That compares with 662 deaths up to the same time last year.
Mr Mark addressed Lake Macquarie Council's combined committee meeting last night. He says most councils ignore the fact that service station owners are breaking the law by establishing convenience stores on land zoned for residential use, because he says they understand the depressed state of the industry and turn a blind eye to their attempts to diversify. He says 70% of service stations are in residential areas, and if the regulations were enforced, it would mean the demise of many suburban garages. The Mayor, Alderman Jeff Pasterfield, says allowing such breaches to go unchecked once they have been brought to Council's notice would make a mockery of planning. The Lake Macquarie Council says it needs a clarification of the Act before it can make its decision. It's called on the Service Stations Association to help.
To encourage service stations
to compile a list of goods the Service Stations Association would give priority to selling. It has also suggested that perhaps the SSA should lobby for the law to be amended.
If the council takes action to prohibit existing activities in service stations, well then as the association responsible for those members, we would have to lobby as hard as we possibly could to get the law changed to facilitate the ongoing sales that are existing now.
Why hasn't this been done in the past if that was the law?
I think quite simply the fact that councils, almost all of them in fact, have recognised the requirement and the need and the demand that items other than those strict limitations within the law in terms of residential areas should continue to be available to the public, and therefore they have not moved.
After only 6 months, instant lotteries have made 24 Newcastle people $50,000 richer, and another 83 have scratched instant prizes worth $10,000. Not a bad dividend for an investment of only $1.10. The instant lotteries have enjoyed a growing popularity in the Hunter region. Officials believe that the easy accessibility of the tickets has boosted sales. The excitement of scratching your way to big prize money has tempted people who don't usually take a punt. But of course, not everyone can win a prize. Managing Director of the Urban Transit Authority, Mr Kel Edgar, is one of 8 executive members in Newcastle for the meeting. He says it's important for the executive to see the problems in Newcastle firsthand.
I think the important task to the authority in the future is to rationalise its services, to ensure consolidation of its fragmented services that have grown up over many, many years, so that we can ensure that we haven't any wasteful effort and that the resources of the authority are used to the best of advantage in respect of its services.
Good morning. Australian runner Laurie Whitty has won the Rio de Janeiro Marathon in 2 hours 15 minutes 31.34 seconds. Whitty finished just 12 seconds ahead of Mexican Carlos Gomez. The Australian, who finished sixth in the event last year, surged to the front at the 37-kilometre mark and retained a clear lead to the finish. That's good news. At the World Gliding Championships in New Mexico, Australian Ingo Renner leads the open class with an almost perfect score after 5 events. In 4 of the contests, Renner scored the maximum of 1,000 points and now has an incredible 4,995 points from a possible 5,000. I'd say he's unbeatable. To Rugby League, and the Australian Schoolboys Rugby League Championships go from today till Friday at Harker Oval, New Lambton. 5 teams, the New South Wales Catholic Schools, the New South Wales Combined High Schools, the Queensland High Schools, the Australian Capital Territory, and the President's 13, which includes 2 Newcastle players, Darren Witherden and Scott Wilkinson, will take part in what will be great football all the week at Harker Oval. The Australian Rugby League Test team face their medicals later today, and I guess Peter Sterling, the injured Parramatta halfback, is the man most unlikely to pass, although the word is that he will play against New Zealand at Lang Park in Brisbane on Saturday. Frenchman Jean-Louis Gaultier has taken the overall lead in the Tour de France Cycling Classic after the second stage, the 100-kilometre time trial. Gaultier's Mercier team won the stage, with the Peugeot team, including Australian Phil Anderson, taking second place.
This year's Tour de France has been thrown wide open by the absence of Bernard Hinault, winner of the race in 4 of the past 5 years. Hinault had to withdraw because of tendinitis in his right knee. At the end of the 3rd day, Jean-Louis Gaultier of France took the overall lead. Gaultier is a member of the Mercier team, which includes the race favourite, Joop Zoetemelk of Holland. Another favourite is the Australian Phil Anderson, who is racing with the Peugeot team. Anderson finished 5th in last year's Tour de France after leading for 10 days. But with another 21 days and 3,000 kilometres of the Tour remaining, the race is wide open.
FIA official Mr John Lee has levelled certain allegations following the death of a 35-year-old labourer, Ronnie Kurowski, who died as a result of burns he received when he was splashed with molten metal in the casting section of the plant.
The allegations are that a chap was placed in a position to do a particular job which could have been regarded as unsafe.
Why is that?
Well, it is a new operation. I understand that what was happening last night was on a trial basis. The company is moving its steelmaking operations from they're moving to a sliding gate nozzle from that of a stopper nozzle. And last night they were experimenting on the sliding gate nozzle, and apparently some malfunction has taken place. It hasn't.
That sliding gate nozzle, which the BHP would not allow us to photograph, is the thing the union has banned when it is used on a certain type of mould called the bottom pour mould. The ban will not prevent a company from producing steel, but it will lead to a full inquiry. Meanwhile, that piece of equipment is unacceptable to the men.
Well, certainly from the events of last night that our members feel they can't use it, at least some modifications taken place, and at least not some guidelines are drawn up to show that that type of equipment can be operated in safety.
So the men will consider a return to work when they meet on the plant at midnight tonight.
At
Fourth-year medical student Michael Golding
in
joined
the
the private
Antarctic region.
expedition sailing to Heard Island as a part of the university medical program, which allows students a 3-month overseas tour. He left on December 13th and returned at the end of March. He intended to study seasickness drugs and the psychological effect of the trip on the other 21 men. However, he got more experience than he bargained for. The expedition's doctor abandoned the trip at Fremantle, and Michael, the youngest team member, became responsible for the group's medical welfare.
At first I thought it was a bit of a buzz. I mean, I was going to be doing things that I wouldn't be able to do for many years to come. And then the next morning I started thinking about the horrible injuries I've seen in the hospitals since I've been a student, thinking, no, I don't think I'd be able to handle that one by myself, and just kept going. So I got into a bit of a flat as I started off, and then the other blokes just sort of said, well, you know, you can only do what you can do, and I started to enjoy it. It was good.
What was the best moment of your trip?
The thing that really turned me on was the animals, the penguins and the seals, and I mean, they were really sort of human. They had their own life there, and they used to walk around chatting to each other, and they were very interested in us. Used to come through our camp and stand there having discussions, used to wake us up in the morning, and we became very good friends with them.
The exercise took place on the college grounds at Torres Hill. It was a simulated aircraft crash in which everyone on board was killed and 20 people on the ground were injured. As soon as the alarm was raised, the nurses were off and ready. Some assuming the roles of ambulance, police and fire officers, while others administered first aid. Representatives from the city's emergency services were invited to attend, and by giving advice and loaning equipment, they helped to make the simulated disaster seem authentic. In fact, apart from the absence of a crashed aircraft, the mock-up did appear quite real. Many of the victims were made up to look injured, while the others were convincing as people in a state of shock. Today was the first time any of the 120 students had ever been confronted with a disaster, real or otherwise. But under the circumstances, they did well. Within 20 minutes, all the seriously injured patients had been stabilised and those in shock were under control.
On 6 games without a loss, and then we had 2 games in 4 days, and we didn't play well against Marconi, but last Sunday we played quite well, probably the most entertaining game we've had all year, and we just went down in the last minute.
Will there be any changes to the match this weekend against Adelaide City in Adelaide?
Well, Michael Bogards is out, he's out on yellow cards, and Mike Shannon has 2 games to play for the club at home, so he won't be playing in Adelaide this weekend.
How do you think you'll fare in Adelaide?
We'll win. We won when we went down there last year, so there's no reason why we can't win this year.
When the plane came down, everyone on board was killed and 20 people on the ground were injured. That was the disaster the student nurses created for themselves. With the help of Newcastle's emergency services, who came to the fore with advice and equipment, they were able to make the mock-up seem quite real. Within seconds from the alarm, these students were on the scene, some acting as police, fire and ambulance officers, while others administered first aid. None of the students had ever been confronted with a disaster, real or otherwise, but under the circumstances they did well. Within 20 minutes, all these seriously ill patients had been stabilised and those in shock were under control. Good.
Thanks, Mike. Looks like a great afternoon of boxing coming up here at Cardiff Works Club tomorrow afternoon. 5 bouts in all. The main event, 10 rounds between Jeff Konoski from Queensland and Ian Dennis from Bathurst. That's in the light middleweight division. There's an 8-round bout between Brett Peavy from Newcastle and Lou Hurst from Queensland. That's welterweight. And then in the featherweight division, 6 rounds between Craig Peavy from Newcastle, his first pro fight, and Frank Ball from Wollongong. And then we have 2 4-round bouts. Both of those look to be pretty exciting as well. Talking to Jeff Konoski here this afternoon. Jeff, welcome to Newcastle.
G'day, how you going?
How many fights have you had as a pro, mate?
3 fights.
You had a pretty good record as an amateur.
Yeah, I've had about 30 wins out of 40 fights, done pretty well.
I believe it's been fairly difficult for you to get pro fights.
Yeah, it is. The right sort of fights in Queensland are hard to get, but my trainer John, he's working on it. And
how far do you think you're away from having a crack at the Australian title, mate?
I think about 6 months if my luck's in, you know.
Mm-hmm. Do you know much about the guy you're fighting tomorrow?
Not really. Just that he's a pretty tough guy, and I think I can beat him. You know, I think I'm better.
Right. You haven't had a chance to look at him fighting before?
No, I know that he's fought Kelly Thompson and the likes of them sort of fighters, and I think I'm ready for him. You know.
Right. Are you in there to go the distance, or would you like to finish it before that?
An early finish, I'd say. I hope to finish about round 5. You know.
Well, we wish you all the luck, mate.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, that's it for now, Mike. Back later on with reports from the International Sports Centre.
The introduction of the Ingal galvanised post could mean the end of the familiar wooden guideposts and signposts that line our roads. The design took 4 years to develop and has been accepted by road government authorities around Australia. It will mean job security for industrial galvanisers' 100 employees, as well as strong prospects for expanding the workforce. The permanent post is rolled at BHP's Newcastle Steelworks and then hot-dip galvanised at the industrial galvanisers in Hexham. But what makes these better than the posts currently in use? Mr. Phil Young.
Well, there's 2 types of product on the market. Firstly, there's timber, and with our product it's hot dip galvanised, so it's corrosion protected. And the other type of product is a galvanised section, but by its section it permits special clamps to be used. Our section doesn't need special clamps, so there's reduction in costs there.
The product was launched by the Lord Mayor of Newcastle, Alderman Joy Cummings, at the City Hall today. Mr Young says the design, which could go national, is not only a boost for BHP and industrial galvanisers, but also Newcastle.
It's Newcastle and industrial galvanisers. Firstly, BHP, there's more steel to roll. There's a new product in the marketplace. To our company, it means security of employment for the workforce, and also job opportunities in the future when the development of the product takes off.
Thanks, John. Good morning. Well, a warmer start to the day than yesterday. Another 4 degrees warmer, in fact. It's 7 degrees out here at the moment, and looks like being a rather warm day later in the day. As far as the board riders are concerned, I'm afraid all of our city beaches, except for Nobby's, have been closed due to pollution. And that pollution problem at Merriweather is 11 times greater than the normal level. So things for the board riders in Newcastle not looking too good, but it's not keeping guys out of the water. There are surfboard riders at both Bar Beach and Merriweather this morning, although both of these beaches are closed, and the list also includes Newcastle Beach. Now, waves this morning are coming from an easterly swell. Wave height is around 1 to 1.2 metres on the average sets, occasionally a little bigger, around 1.5 metres. Longshore currents are now starting to run towards the south, so the pollution problem may be cured within the next 2 or 3 days, depending on the weather coming our way. For the swimmers this morning, take care, baths only according to the pollution levels. And what's the weather like today? A cool morning but becoming mild. Early clouds should clear to a mainly sunny day. west to northwesterly winds at 10 to 20 knots, 20 to 40 kilometres per hour, and they'll freshen to around 15 to 25 knots, that's 30 to 50 kilometres per hour during the day. And a cooler west to southwesterly change is expected tonight at around 10 to 20 knots, once again 20 to 40 kilometres per hour. Slight seas inshore will tend moderate offshore on a low swell. Newcastle expecting a maximum today of 20 degrees, a rather mild day, 17 degrees for Scone. High tide coming up at 10 o'clock this morning, 1.4 metres. Low tide at 3:30 this afternoon, 0.4 of a metre. And the outlook for tomorrow, cool, dry and sunny with southwesterly winds. Well, there we have it. I'm afraid a lot of surfboard riders in Newcastle obviously unaware of the consequences of swimming in polluted water. They're in the water now at Bar Beach and Merewether, and conditions are rather bad as far as pollution is concerned. For the surfboard riders, waves around 1 to 1.2 metres, offshore winds all day, a cooler southwesterly change tonight, 20 degrees the top for Newcastle today. Have a great day whatever you're doing. Back again tomorrow morning.